All right. Welcome, folks, to the April edition of Web Users Group. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for taking time out of your day today. And we will try to make this as informational and important information that you can use to continue with your website as much as possible. Here's what the agenda looks like for today. My name is Adam Hilsmeyer. I'm Digital Program Manager with Information Technology Services. For folks who have low, limited, or no vision, or just going screen on right now or audio only, I am male. I'm here in my home office, but I have a Zoom background on, so there's not much to describe going on behind me other than the UCSC. We'll go, I think it says our voices will, boy, I should know this positioning by now. Rob, what's the positioning here? Our voices will define the future. That's what it is. For a little bit of housekeeping, I will share our ground rules as well as our land acknowledgement in our chat. Give me a second just to do that. All right. We share the ground rules and the land acknowledgement of the land that the university is on. Some of us are also on that land too, so we can think about ways we can make a personal and institutional commitment to a shared future together. The agenda changed just a little bit because we got some new information about documents and storage. Documents and where to keep things is an important topic that we talk about as people who keep and maintain websites. So we will add that to the list of things we're going to chat about. Wanted to start off doing a quick little exercise to get everybody involved. We're going to look at two examples of links and buttons. And I'll share a link with you in chat of what we're going to look at. And you're welcome to hop to that page, or you can look through your Zoom chat as to what we're going to look at. So we have two examples of things. Yes, did I steal these from the Pacific Cookie Company for demonstration purposes? Because I love cookies, I did. But this is something from their website. And you can see that there's two things on the screen and a call to action or a choice to be made. And the assumption is that you, as somebody who would be visiting that website, you might make a decision with that call to action that's presented to you. I'm going to launch a poll in just a second. And what I want to ask you is, based on those choices that you see there, which link or which button do you think provides better context to complete the call to action? And the assumption here is you're going to probably get one of these things. So let me quick launch a poll, and if you wouldn't mind responding to the first example. And as we're going here, I just realized I made a mistake in combining those two poll questions together, but that's okay. Go ahead and hit respond on those as you need. So I'll share the results back in just a second here, but we're already kind of like at a mess. People think that shop now is more of a clear call to action. We'll talk about why I think that might be in just a second here, but that's a good gut feeling to go with. For this next one, I'll send you to the webpage, which is in our link, because you'll want to actually create an action. So if you go to that last link that I just shared, that says Sandbox, and we'll look at example 2 here. In example 2, again, you have two choices here about shopping. And if you are using a mouse or a trackpad, what I'd ask you to do is first select this Shop Now button 1 and see what happens. If you get the same behavior that I do, it opened the link in the exact same tab that we were working in. So now, as you have this page open here, what I want you to do is put down your trackpad or mouse, and using your keyboard only, try to navigate backwards to that page that you were just on. And I'll give everybody 30 seconds to try it out. I realize if you don't navigate using a keyboard, this might be difficult, but just try it. And I'll give you a cue to use the tab key. See if tab will get you there, or if you know another shortcut about how to get around. But the goal here is to get back to that first page, what we were first looking at. Okay, hopefully some of you have tried that by now. And it was, you know, if you're not used to using a keyboard, that's okay. Not everybody does use a keyboard, but if you knew the command of command and control and left bracket, depending on what type of platform you're on here, let me make sure I'm on this here. And if I do command and left bracket, it takes me back. That's a way that somebody who only uses a keyboard is going to surf the web. They're going to go from browser. They might open a link and go to a new page, or, you know, try to navigate the way that they're doing. That's a common command. That's actually labeled as back in some of the keyboard commands that one might use. So next up, I want you to try a second thing. Go to the second link and see what happens. Click on that first. It's okay to use your trackpad or mouse to do that first. And you'll see what it did there. It opened the link in a new tab. Might be a new window, depending on a browser or depending on the functionality that you might have it. Now, try again to navigate backwards to that original page that you were on. And I'll give you a second using your keyboard only, not using your mouse. And the hint is, chances are you won't be able to do this, especially if the link opens in a new window. And you know, you might be experiencing this too. If you're only using your keyboard, it's a little disorienting. How do I get backwards to the place that I was at? It might even be frustrating with the experience. So if you did know, there is a keyboard shortcut that you can use called Alt, Command, Left Arrow. And I'll do that right here. This can start navigating through the tabs that you might have open, but it's not a common path. And you also, thank you, Chris. Yeah, there's a couple different ways to do it, depending on what operating system you're using. You would have also had to know some way that the new tab opened up, assuming you use the keyboard only, or if you don't have the benefit of sight to see that something changed on your web page. The browser might not queue you up to say that, hey, something different has happened. And that practice is what I want to talk about in best practices next. The ability as to whether or not you should use links that open in the same tab or open into a new tab. And we'll move through here. I'm going to share 3 new resources that are available to you. And the first one is about creating meaningful link and button text. So we looked at those examples that said, click here, read more, shop now. Just about everybody said, shop now. Makes sense that that would be the call to action. Why is that important to use that? Because it's a specific and a directive. It's not a generic call to action. Imagine you had a web page that had 10 links that all said click here or read more. That might also be very confusing in context, which is why creating meaningful links is an important part of how you should design and think about you design your web pages. And if I were to sum up, you know, what we're talking about here, don't use text like click here or just read more. They're just not helpful to people. They're not as helpful as we think. Sometimes it's easier just to say like click here to find the thing you're looking for. It's better to create some meaning behind that link, I think is the topic I want to convey there. Another link we've got in there is, should your links open into a new window or a new tab? And I would say, you know, the easy way to describe this is most links should open into that same window because it's the most accessible solution. And that's kind of the topic we're talking about here. We're talking about accessibility on a couple different levels and how easy we are when we make design choices with our web content for people to get back and forth. And the better solution, I would say, is to create links that just open up into the same window. There are exceptions to the rule. I've noted some of the exceptions in the article. We won't really cover it, but it's when you're like authenticated or like you're logged into your bank and you don't want to log back out. Like, sure, there's some situations. I don't think a ton of those apply to the work that we do at UCSC, but in general, when you do create links for your website, it is best to make sure they just open in the same window. We've got a third article in there about using headings to create accessible websites. And in that one, this is just a reminder, this is something that's been coming up in the pre-launch reviews as people are moving their websites into WordPress, as to how to structure your pages. And you might call this semantic HTML. There's a couple different ways to describe this, but it's using headings essentially instead of like font sizes or bold or things like that to create a structure or a hierarchy of your web page. It's got lots of benefits to it, and it's the process we recommend moving forward as you think about how to structure your web pages. Rob, yeah.
Yeah, just wanted to add on to that you do have the ability to adjust the font size of any heading tag. So the first step in your process is to make sure your heading tag is nested correctly. Should it be an H2, an H3, or an H4, depending on what comes above it. And then if it doesn't look right, if the default font size for that particular heading doesn't look right, you always have the ability to adjust it so that you can maintain the proper structure of the page without needing to have a fixed font size that maybe doesn't look right to you.
Yeah, these are all considerations we want you to think about as you're thinking about the transition, if you're in WCMS right now, into WordPress. And we're building up to a larger topic about that very idea in just a second. So we'll keep moving forward with our agenda here. We've got some new guidance for folks making their transition from WCMS into the UCSC WordPress platform. And that is on our training page on websites, websites.ucsc.edu. Again, it's your central resource to help you get moving forward. We have a page called training, and a lot of folks have asked, like, okay, how do I learn more about WordPress? We've created some self-help guidance about just getting the 101, getting started with WordPress. We've also created like a next level of guidance into that structure too. Is like, all right, I got my basics down of WordPress. How do I actually start designing things, and how do I think about that? With that, we've got another guide that we've put together called Getting Started with Design. And we have recommendations about what to do in these spaces. Take a look at other websites, see if you see things that you like there, make accessible design choices. What are the things that I can actually edit in WordPress as I move my website there? What are the things I cannot edit? These are all pieces that we'll include in guidance that, again, we will share back in an email for web users group at the end of this. So you don't need to track these things down at this point. With that, any questions before we keep moving forward here? Just some new guidance for you. Not seeing any. As we are transitioning for websites, we in ITS and at the university advancement level are talking about the eventual retirement of WCMS. We haven't put forth a specific time as to when that's going to happen. Call it a sunset, call it retirement, call it the end of that service. But that service is going to be going away eventually. That's why we have WordPress now. We are looking into several criteria that we want to try and balance out, including your needs as a person who owns and maintains a website. We're looking at the aging infrastructure that current platform, that WCMS platform is on. We are looking internally at the cost it takes, the cost in time and resources to continue to maintain the old and maintain the new at the same time. What I want to ask of you as somebody who edits and maintains a website is I want you to register your intent about, we need to know a little more information about what do you think is your exact date or your general date of when you think you're going to be moving your website. I'll provide you a link to this Google survey. And this is an ask for us. This is information gathering so we can start figuring out specifically when we're going to say that, guess what, WCMS is going to eventually go away on this day. If you wouldn't mind, you don't have to do it right now, using that form. It's a very short survey where we're going to ask you, what website do you maintain? What do you expect to happen with this website? When do you think a transition might happen for WCMS, and how confident do you feel that you could actually hit that timeline? That information is going to help us internally figure out, do we need to throw more resources at this? Do people need help moving their stuff? Is it okay to just retire a website? I would say yes. The answer is yes there. If the thing is not performing or doing the things you need anymore, please let us know that. And if you've got any questions on this form, I'll provide a feedback link at the end of this conversation as we move forward. Documents and storage. We have lots of document types on our websites. And because there are changes underway, you've probably heard about the changes with Google Storage. Google Storage teams and UCSE Records Management team are putting together a couple sessions to answer your questions about this. I definitely recommend what they're calling virtual drop-in sessions that I'll share a link here too. Again, we'll share this back in an email so you don't have to track that. But there are going to be questions for us. We keep, documents on our website sometimes. We have PDFs, we have Excel sheets, we have things we want to share with people through our websites. And there are questions right now with the Google platform. What do we do? Do we keep things in Google? Do we need to shift things around? This is a space, these sessions are a space to answer and talk about that exact topic. So you can have some guidance as to say, like, what's the way to move forward here? These, I think, are going to be complementary to information and guidance that we've already talked about in Web Users Group about archiving websites and content and managing publications if you have that type of content on your website. So I definitely recommend checking those out. I think there's 4 different virtual sessions starting next week, and I think there's 1 a week through May. Definitely recommend looking into those. I'll also be attending one of those just to see what information is shared, and we can talk about that at the next Web Users Group as well. Feature requests. So we're talking about the UCSE WordPress service and the folks that have already made the transition into there. A couple updates to features, or people have asked us, hey, can we improve these things in that platform? Yeah, we've actually done some of those things. I'll tease out that breadcrumbs and ordered lists are 2 of the things that we've talked about. And with that, I'm going to bring Rob Knight on from University Advancement to talk about some of the theme updates that we've just made. And with that, Rob, I will stop sharing if you would like to.
Okay. Yeah, I was just about to share and it said disabled.
There you go.
Okay.
Let me know if you've got access to it.
All right. I'm just going to show off a couple of quick changes we made in the last theme update that went out last week. The most obvious one is, let me drag a Zoom window out of the way here. Breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs are an important wayfinding tool when you get to a website, particularly if your website's goes deep or is rather large. Breadcrumbs can be a fundamental or a really important tool to navigate. Breadcrumbs previously were kind of all over the place. They could have been on a page or not been on a page. If they were on a page, they might have been in a big banner or they might have been somewhere else. And we determined that that wasn't the best way to present breadcrumbs. So breadcrumbs now have a permanent home. They're very happy to be there. They are right below the main navigation, and they will go as far down as your site goes. So they do push everything else down a little bit, but we do think that's pretty important just to make sure it's really easy for people to see where they are in your website. So that's breadcrumbs. Real quick. One issue that folks have had is if you've customized any of your templates, you may not see breadcrumbs So one of the, and I promise we're gonna communicate this a little bit more clearly in future releases. If you're ever having any problems seeing things that we told you have changed, you can always go into templates in the site editor under manage templates. And if you have changed a template, oh, I haven't, mine are all reset. If you've changed a template, it will indicate that here. It'll say customize by, and then you can always undo that change. And that resets your template back to what is in the theme files. If that all sounds way too confusing, don't worry about it. We'll continue to talk about it in future meetings, but just wanted to know if you're having any problems seeing some of these changes that I'm showing here. It can always be fixed by resetting templates or clearing customizations is what it's called in WordPress. I'm going to step back out here and show one more thing, which is some changes we made to lists. That was the other change here, and that is that we've added a few more ways to mark ordered lists. So I've got a list here. We're just starting with numbers. We now have lower and upper alpha, which I think were in there before, but we also have lower Roman. This lets you start nesting lists as deep as you want with different marker styles. What I did was looked at Google Docs and see what they do to denote list markers in nested lists and discovered that there is generally just these three, and you can just continue to reuse them as you go deep. So create a list 7 levels deep. I mean, if you have to, it's okay. I'm not gonna come to your house or anything, but now you have the ability to change markers if you want. And then one last thing I want to show, if I can really quick. Sorry, Adam, I didn't talk about this one, but if you've used the icon block to put an icon on a page, and then you've made it into a link. Go ucsc.edu. You're familiar with what happens to that link. Oop, gets a little big. I don't know if you can see that, but it gets big and grows and hovers. What we did was, thanks to Jason on my team, we added a style that says remove hover. All that does is exactly what it says on the button. It removes the hover. And that is really if you're using it in a more fixed position like we do here with the UCSC logo. So if it's going to be in your site header or something like that, sometimes you don't want the grow effect. It's optional. By default, still grows, but just a little thing we added per a request from a user. There are other changes. There's a couple of bug fixes. We've got more changes coming up, but that's it for now.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. I think we should be looking back at Open Labs here. Open Labs, I absolutely encourage you, if you have any questions about the things that Rob just covered, if you have questions about moving your website, if you have questions about how to even get started with some strategy, design, questions about WordPress, we have Open Labs. We're looking at websites.ucsc.edu one more time. And under the support tab, we have access to Open Labs. This is a space for you to come to ask questions, and you can register for any of the weekly meetings that are coming up. These are here. They're meant to be very loose, and the ability to give you the ability to ask really any questions as you're thinking about your website moving forward. We will switch up to the point where we're at feedback. And we're pretty much wrapping up here. Next time around, I think we're aiming for Wednesday, May 29th to meet with this group again. If you have thoughts on today's session, or you'd like to just provide general feedback to the web team, that is the place that you can do it, and we welcome that. Please do. It helps us improve. And we'll move into Q&A and answer any questions that you have. If you have no questions, you are welcome to exit at this point. You're also welcome to stay around and learn from others. That's actually what Open Labs ends up being a lot, is people kind of show up and they're learning from what other people are doing with their websites. Yeah, Rob.
I wanted to add a note about breadcrumbs. Tom Gardner helpfully reminded me. I'll share my screen one more time really quick just to make breadcrumbs make a little bit more sense. In order for breadcrumbs to look like this, you have to actually create this relationship between this page and the page below it. So we do that. We do that when we're editing a page. Over here in the sidebar, we say down here, it's very low on the right, page attributes. I've chosen a parent page for this page, and that sort of sets it a layer down. And that's what makes breadcrumbs work, is you're saying this page that I'm on is a child page of the privacy policy page. And this is because we don't have like the concept of folders like we do in WCMS within WordPress. We're really just basically saying this page is a parent of another page, or this page is a child or a parent of another page. So if you're having problems seeing anything more than just home and then your page, it's because you need to create that relationship between pages that are nested on your site. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, Open Lab is a great place to come ask these questions again. And it never hurts to ask questions more than once, because most things take a few times of seeing it for it to really sink in.
Indeed. Thank you, Rob. We covered a lot of ground there on a lot of topics, which again, we will send back to you in a recap email, including this video, in case you weren't able to make the whole session or you wanted to share it with other folks. But at this point, I'm going to stop recording, and you are welcome to ask questions that you have.